Hi, my name is Alien Brian. Today we're talking about Stuxnet, a computer virus which aimed to destroy Iran's efforts to build nuclear weapons. It was developed by the US and Israel, and it targeted the computers which controlled Iran's nuclear refineries. It attempted to destroy them by making the equipment malfunction, and it was the first virus designed for this purpose. It was first identified in July 2010, but had been attacking Iran since 2007. Let's get into the video. First of all, we have to talk about the history of Iran and the USA, and why they aren't good friends. Prior to 1979, the USA and Iran got on like a house on fire, mostly because the leader of Iran, Mohammad Pahlavi, was a dictator installed by the CIA after overthrowing the democratically elected Mohammad Mossadegh. Pahlavi was installed to protect British and American oil interests in Iran and ensure that the profits from Iran's natural resources could be siphoned to the West. Pahlavi, in exchange, was guaranteed a luxurious life as an Anglo-American puppet. He led an opulent lifestyle even after being exiled from Iran, living with King Hassan II of Morocco. Now, you probably recognise this fella. His name is Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, and he led the 1979 Iranian Revolution, which ended friendly relations between the US and Iran. Personally, I would have chosen something a little bit less evil looking for my banner, maybe something like this, but that's just me. He was a religious cleric who led the biggest rebel faction, and he took charge of Iran following the revolution. He put a stop to the westernization of Iran and implemented a legal system based on a strict interpretation of Islam. The US would have been fine with this, but he took back control of Iran's oil supplies, so you can imagine how that went down in Washington. From 1979 to today, there's been a couple more little issues, like the Iranian hostage crisis and a few human rights abuses, so relations have only gotten worse. Iran has had a nuclear program since the 1950s, focusing on nuclear energy, but after the revolution they went undercover with their operations. An investigation in 2002 revealed undeclared nuclear activities, and the UN demanded they stop the program in 2006, but they refused. So naturally, the US wasn't happy about this. They said, only leaders with sound minds should have nuclear weapons, and they decided to do something about it. You're probably wondering why the US used the virus to attack Iran, rather than just doing what they do best and bombing the shit out of them. Well, the US wanted to avoid officially starting a war with Iran, which would be the result of a conventional military strike. Unlike the US's usual targets, Iran was well funded because of their oil industry, and had the ability and motive to launch a counterattack on the US. The US also wanted to avoid the political ramifications of an attack, following their internationally condemned move to invade Iraq. The US also wanted to use this attack to test and demonstrate its capabilities in cyber warfare. This was the first time a computer virus had been used to destroy another nation's physical infrastructure, and it showcased the power it had. Okay, let's get into what Stuxnet actually does. Stuxnet is a type of virus, known as a computer worm, which replicates itself to other computers on a network. Once it reaches a new computer, it then uses that computer as a host to find other targets to spread to. As you can probably tell, this self-replicating effect can result in an exponential spread of the virus. The first computer worm was invented in 1971 by a man called Bob Thomas, who was a computer scientist working on the ARPANET system, which is basically an early version of the internet. This worm was called Creeper, and all it did was output the message, "I'm a creeper, catch me if you can." Ominous sounding, but it did no harm. Compare that to modern viruses, which steal your bank details and personal data. The development of Stuxnet probably began around 2005, but it's all very hush-hush, so nobody quite knows for sure. It targets SCADA systems, which stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition Systems. SCADA systems are computers which manage and control physical machinery, like in manufacturing. In this instance, Stuxnet was specifically designed to target the SCADA systems controlling Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities. Specifically, it would target the computers controlling the gas centrifuges, which separate nuclear material. To actually get access to the computer systems, Stuxnet exploited what's known as a zero-day. A zero-day is a software vulnerability which is unknown to the software's creator, and they've therefore got 0 days to react to it once it has been exploited. In fact, Stuxnet exploited 4 separate 0 days in the Windows operating system, which is one of the things that point to it being developed by a nation state. 0 days are very difficult to find, so it takes an experienced team of security experts to find 4 of them. Once Stuxnet gets on a Windows system, It scans the computer to see if it has the Siemens Step 7 SCADA system. If not, Stuxnet shuts itself down and does nothing else to the computer, because it's probably just on your mum's laptop. However, if it does find the Step 7 system, it modifies its code and begins its work. Now that you know how Stuxnet works, here's how it was used to attack Iran. First, the US needed to get Stuxnet into one of Iran's computers in their nuclear enrichment facilities, and it's not quite as simple as getting the receptionist to download a malicious PDF. To avoid cyber attacks, important national facilities like this are kept air-gapped, meaning they have no access to the public internet. So, they needed to find another way to infect Iran's systems. The solution was Eric van Saben, a 36-year-old Dutch engineer who specialised in energy systems. He worked for a company based in the UAE and regularly performed maintenance on Iranian oil and gas infrastructure. He was also a Dutch intelligence officer. In 2008, while installing a new water pump at the Natanz nuclear enrichment facility, he also installed Stuxnet. It isn't known exactly how he did this, but it's likely he plugged in an infected USB flash drive into a computer, and Stuxnet spread itself through the network. Eric van Saben fled Iran immediately after installing Stuxnet. 2 weeks later, he died during a motorcycle crash in Dubai. Thankfully, there was no evidence of foul play, so it was just a big coincidence. Have you ever downloaded something from a shady source, and immediately your computer begins to freeze and freak out? Straight away, you realise you've installed a virus, and clean it up immediately. Well, that's why, when Stuxnet gets on your system, it does nothing. It just waits, and if your computer is a SCADA system, it will gather data on how your machines are running. Stuxnet gathers this information because it feeds it back to the infected computer once it begins its attack on the physical machinery. Instead of the software showing that something is wrong, the data shows that everything's fine. When engineers investigate while they're struggling to refine the nuclear fuel, Step 7 won't look like the problem. Stuxnet also had a connection to 2 servers based in Denmark and Malaysia, which were likely controlled by the US and Israel. These servers allowed Stuxnet to download updates while running on the affected machines, and also meant it could upload the stolen data. The way Stuxnet physically damaged Iran's nuclear facilities is by targeting centrifuges that spin between 807 Hz and 1210 Hz. This is much faster than most industrial centrifuges operate at, so Stuxnet could be sure it was attacking the right component. Once Stuxnet has identified its targets, it will periodically increase the speed to 1410 Hz, then to 2000, then down to 1000. These rotational speed fluctuations caused excess vibrations in the centrifuges and caused significant damage over time. Stuxnet then, of course, hides the evidence by replacing the data with real-looking data that he gathered previously. In September 2010, 2 years after the Natanz nuclear facility had been infected, Iranian computer security specialists discovered Stuxnet. The operational capacity of the centrifuges had dropped by over 30%, and in November 2010, it was announced that Natanz had shut down several times because of a series of technical problems. It's estimated that Stuxnet destroyed up to 1,000 centrifuges, which is about 10% of the total. However, despite all this, it's reported that the Americans and Israelis were overall disappointed by Stuxnet. Despite destroying 1,000 centrifuges, Iran was well funded and able to quickly replace them, so production wasn't impacted as much as they'd hoped. On the 29th of November 2010, the Iranian president Mahmoud Ahmadinejad officially confirmed the virus's existence for the first time, and on the same day, 2 Iranian nuclear scientists were targeted in separate car bomb attacks. Majid Shahriari died, but Feridun Abbasi survived and was later elected to Iran's parliament. We've gone full circle here. The US decided to create a virus so they didn't have to bomb Iran, but at the end of the day, it's what they do best. All jokes aside, it's not actually clear who killed Shahriari. The US have a motive, because killing them would have slowed down the nuclear program after it was clear that Stuxnet wasn't as successful as they'd hoped, and so do Iran, because the nuclear program was negatively impacted. That's the story of how the US and Israel attacked Iran's nuclear facilities with a virus. They also tried to launch Stuxnet in North Korea, with the same aim of destroying their nuclear facilities, but they found it impossible to get the virus into a nuclear facility. Just goes to show that North Korea's extreme security is justified. There's an ever-increasing emphasis placed on cybersecurity today. The US and Israel are still 2 of the best at it, and it has played an increasingly crucial role in the war in Ukraine, coming from both the West and Russia. Now might be a good time to get that cybersecurity training, because there's far more demand for specialists than supply, and that's only going to increase. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe. Bye!